Hold on. Lost in the night, kids, and you get it right. Hold tight, place the light will come. Hold on through the eye of the storm. All around me, like I'm drowning. Love is like a lighthouse, let it shine. Love is a lighthouse, shining on the shore. Love is a lighthouse, won't you shine on me once more? Love is a lighthouse, when I'm drowning in my own mind. Love is a lighthouse, won't you carry me home tonight? Carry me home tonight. In case you're wondering, that song is called Lighthouse by MC Yogi. Right now we're going to go over section 15 out of our lovely book You by Charles F. Haanel. It is still Wednesday the 30th, but right now it is 4:10. We're going to go ahead and make this chapter really quick. This is on the imagination. Right now I still have my section 14 uploading that we went over this morning on magnetism. And right now we are very excited to go over the imagination. Okay, our goal is to get through this within the hour, because then we have to go back into work. Yeah, my work schedule's been really weird. I've been having to go in every 12 hours. So I run the 5 and the 5:45 class, and I also run the 5:45 in the evening class. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt, because that's my day. Like, I would rather do 3-4 classes in a row than do 2 classes than having to go back later and doing another one. Things like that. Just for, just my time. I could be doing other things with my time. But, as of right now, it's fine. It's no big deal, because it's helping me out a lot. It's helped me get this laptop, like I said. Yeah, it's just keep me going with things, and I'm thankful for that. And that's the most important part with it. So let's go ahead and get started on the imagination. And speaking of work, I threw on my work shirt, Fit Body Boot Camp. The one I work at is the one in North Fontana. Look at this. Bam! Even says coach in the back. It's pretty cool. I actually really like it. It's a lot better than the shirts LA Fitness gave us. The whole 8 months I was there, I only had one shirt. Yeah, go figure. So, let us get started on section 15. This one is entitled The Imagination. In a quote by Neville Goddard, he says, "The man who is aware of what he is imagining knows what he is creating." And another quote by Blake, and he says, "The eternal body of man is the imagination, which is God himself." Blake. So, let's go ahead and get started. You imagine many things that are not so, but if you continue to imagine these things, they eventually come to pass. Why is this? Remember how we are always talking about with things. Thought, thinking. When you think of things, you're setting out those thought vibrations, okay, and they register within the ether, okay, and once it's registered within the ether, it then travels along and it connects with other similar vibrations with its nature, and that in turn will continue to attract whatever it is that you're thinking about. For example, if you're trying to make more money, okay, I'm going to use money for example. Okay, you're trying to make more money, okay, you're thinking about money. Think about the money, think about it, and think about it. Okay, eventually you're going to reach an opportunity which is going to allow you to make that money of which you are thinking about. That is how the law of attraction works. The imagination. It is because the imagination is the process of imaging these things in or on your mind, and this process is nature's method of creation. Perhaps you may think that your imagination can create nothing. Well, you can easily prove whether this is so or not yourself. Take a piece of white paper about 24 inches square. Okay, so we will go ahead and use our lovely box. So what are you saying? A about 24 inches square. Draw a circle as large as this paper will permit. Okay, maybe we won't use this box. Okay, well, let me grab a sheet of paper really quick. Yeah, no, my room's a little disorganized right now, but you guys remember my old journal, or my folder that I had created when I was doing fitness. This was about 3 months ago already, and with that being said, I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. You know, don't be afraid to try anything new. You know, this was something I had tried myself, and I found that I really don't think it's what I wanted to do. I even put together a bunch of notes when I'm with my clients. You know, here's a sheet of paper for the transformations of pictures when I was working at LA Fitness. A few of them. There's one of my clients, actually the two on this side, both of them lost 30 and 32 pounds. Yeah, I know. And then these two. The one on the bottom lost 25, and the one on top, she stayed around the same weight, but she gained lots of lean muscle mass. And, a sheet of paper. So, yeah, with that being said, never be afraid of trying anything new. Because me personally, I found out along the way that, you know, I feel there's something else I'm supposed to do. You know, fitness has taught me a lot, and I'm very thankful for it. But we need this whole sheet of paper, don't we? Okay, so we're taking this entire sheet of paper. Okay, we need to draw a circle as large as this paper is. Okay, so drawing a circle, and from here, drawing it as large as the paper. It's not exactly a circle, it's more of an oval, and it's not the best, but anyway. Draw a circle as large as this paper will permit, and draw a horizontal line through the center of the circle. So, horizontal line, left to right. Call the left end the line A. So this is line A, and the right end B. So A, and then B. Okay, next, now draw a vertical line through the circle. Call the north end of this line C. Okay, there's C. And then the south end, D. Okay, so now we have A, B, C, and D. Take a lead pencil and attach a string about 8 inches long. Okay, I don't have a string and I don't have a lead pencil, but if you do, feel free to continue the experiment. Okay, and let me know how it is. So, he says, take a lead pencil and attach a string about 8 inches long, and upon the end of the string, tie a small weight about the size of a quarter. Now, then, for the proof. Place the paper on a table. Stand upright and hold the rod right above the paper, so that the pendulum will be just above the center of the paper where the lines intersect. So, the paper that you drew this on needs to be flat on the table, okay? Because this pendulum, this thing that the lead pencil with the string attached to it with the quarter, or a weight the size of a quarter at the end, is going to be, you're going to be holding it up top, and it's going to be dangling like a pendulum. What he says, so that the pendulum will be just above the center of the paper where the lines intersect. Now think of the line A and B, but do not move. In a few minutes, the pendulum will swing back and forth along lines A and B. Now think of lines C and D. The pendulum will stop swinging back and forth, but will begin to swing up and down along lines C and D. Now take your thought off from the lines entirely and fix it upon the circle. The pendulum will begin a circulatory motion. Now then, think that the pendulum is swinging faster and faster, that you can hardly stop it. The motion will become so fast that you can hardly see it go. Now then, think that it will not move at all, that something is the matter with it. It will stop. Remember that Matrix scene, okay? The imagination with the little monk kid. It's not the spoon that bends, it's you that bends. This experiment is one which Mr. Charles Baudouin of the Jean-Jacques Institute in France uses to illustrate the power of thought to his students. You may think that this is willpower. It is nothing of the kind. In fact, if you will the pendulum to move, it will not budge. You must think of the result, not upon how is to be accomplished. You must see it at its end result. You must see it moving, okay, as it is. Okay, don't will it to move. Don't move it yourself. Okay, see it as it is. Bend it. In his experiments, M. Baldwin found that the higher the type of intelligence which the student possessed, the more rapidly did he secure results. Those students who were more or less deficient in mentality were very slow, and in some cases results were almost negligible. When you become familiar with the operation of this law, you will have found the secret of success, of health, of prosperity, of happiness, of popularity. You will have discovered a law which is as dependable as the law of gravitation. When this law is put into operation for the purpose of bringing about material success or prosperity, it is called the creative law of prosperity. You may ask how can this result be accomplished? How will the things be brought to you which will make you harmonious, prosperous, and happy? They will come to you through the operation of natural laws. By the law of attraction, your unity with the thing. Remember that quote by Buddha that we were talking about, okay? Thinking. What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create. Now feeling, okay? Feeling is the process of you using your magnetic energy. Okay? Remember, when you think of a certain thing, those thoughts exist more as a wave. You know, they're hazy wave states. They're thought forms. Okay? It's not something, it just exists in the thought realm. Okay? Until we give emotion to that thought, we start to identify ourselves with that thought. And once we become identified with that certain thinking, we start acting on that thought, and we become that. Okay? And that's how we bring things into manifestation. Spirit, universal mind, life, energy, expressed through all forms of the seen and unseen side of life. The human brain is the finest, most vibrant vehicle on this plane, and thus it has power to control over all things. If you think or concentrate along any particular line, you start a train of causation. Now remember how we were learning in the Master Key system that the brain is the most wonderful piece of mechanism, the most wonderful piece of attachment which has ever been given to man, okay, because that is the medium in which we could bring things from the invisible out into the visible. Because remember, every time we think, okay, we're setting brain cells into activity, and these cells literally group themselves in accordance with the nature of your own thinking. Okay, you're literally building your brain with every single thought that you have, thought by thought. It is your mental home. Remember how we was talking about? And if you think or concentrate along any particular line, you start a train of causation. And if your thought is sufficiently concentrated and kept continuously in mind, what happens? One thing I could say is that you form a new circuit within your own brain. You become somebody entirely new, because now you're thinking a new way. There is only one thing that can occur. Whatever the vision you have, the imagination you have, the image is accepted by the universal intelligence, expressing through the cells of your physical body and environment. Now remember how we were talking about the subconscious mind is the body, okay? And the image is accepted by the universal intelligence, expressing through the cells of your physical body, the subconscious mind, and environment. And these cells send out their calls into the great formless energy everywhere around you for the material which corresponds with the image and harmonizes with its vibration with it. And whether the image is for success along any particular line or fear of a particular thing, you call the atoms from out of the formless energy which make for the success or for the thing that you fear. You relate with conditions necessary to bring into manifestation the thing you desire or the thing you fear. Okay, moving back to the very top. Okay, remember, these cells are calling into the great formless energy everywhere. This ether. Remember how we were talking, when we think, okay, we're sending out these thought forms within the ether. Okay, remember the story of my cat. Okay, one night I was just going to the liquor store, seeing a bunch of stray cats, and I was just thinking on how much I really desired to have another cat, you know, and the next day I end up getting a cat. You know, it was free, and this cat is like I love this guy. You know, he's calm, he's I mean, he's a cat. You know, he is smart. All cats are smart. And they work their ways around you. They know how to do that. Yeah. We see it. I know my cat does. Okay, moving on to how we were saying, okay, when we send our thoughts into this atmosphere, okay, by the law of attraction, where those vibrations then harmonize with whatever it is it's in nature with. Remember, whatever is the same nature as it, and then they, in turn, harmonize together, and then they start getting attracted to each other by magnetism, that magnetic, the thing which pulls things together and holds things together. Thoughts of anger, hatred, fear, jealousy, worry, etc. act directly on the secretions, causing an actual poison in the system, which in time will destroy the body, unless they are overcome with love, harmony, joy, faith, etc. Now I want to talk about a little bit about the lovely stress hormone, cortisol. Okay, what exactly is cortisol? Okay, like he's saying, thoughts of anger, fear, hatred, jealousy, and worry, etc. act directly on the secretions, causing an actual poison in the system. Okay, when you're stressed out, okay, when you're having negative thoughts, remember the mind is nothing but vibration, okay, and thinking is a process of the mind, okay, and when you're releasing that consciousness vibration, and you're not only releasing into the atmosphere, but you're embodying that vibration within yourself, okay, you're being that thing, okay, and your body responds to it by secreting that within itself, okay, making you feel that way. You know, that's why when you think happy thoughts, okay, and your body's releasing dopamine and serotonin, making you feel better, okay, but when you're thinking negative thoughts and the worst possible things that could happen, your body starts releasing cortisol, okay, the stress hormone, making you feel bad, making you feel not so good. Constructive thoughts are stronger than destructive thoughts, and love is the strongest of all. We are told by the greatest of teachers that the fundamental or foundation law of our being is love. Love God, love your neighbor, love yourself, love your enemy, love everybody and everything. Now remember what even Wallace D. Wattles has said about love, okay? Love your brother, for the man who does not love his brother does not love himself and does not love God. You know, people who love God he even said it too. There was He said people who love God may sometimes be tyrants, you know, but people who love people, they're not tyrants, you know, because God is everything and God is everywhere, okay? That person you're talking to is God, okay? The person you're listening to is God, okay? The cat you see walking down the street is God, you know, embodied in that form. Okay, remember, there is only one divine substance, an intelligence, which has manifested itself within everything. And how we have just gone over in the last chapter, that the electron, okay, the electron is the center, the point center of which intelligence is. You know, these electrons in our mind body are our electromagnetic subtle body. No one can afford to hate, because hate always destroys the hater. It is said that, quote, whom the gods would destroy, they first make angry, end quote. They first make angry, because hate destroys the hater. It's a negative vibration. Prosperity is a harmonious, creative state of being. Creative law will overcome every kind of inharmony, whether it be financial, physical, mental, moral, or social. Every thought of lack or poverty acts directly on the heart, affecting the circulation, affecting the circulation, causing constipation, congestion, and many forms of disease due to poor circulation. Thoughts of prosperity, love, joy, and happiness also act upon the heart, causing good circulation and a healthy body. There is much truth in the saying, quote, laugh and grow fat, end quote, quote, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, end quote. Any physician will tell you that if he can get a good circulation of pure blood to the part of the organ of the body affected, he can heal it, regardless as to what may appear to be the difficulty. And that's so funny that he just said that, because I used to tell my clients that, okay, if your legs are sore one day, go for a walk on the treadmill, okay? Use the stairs, okay? You need to get the blood flowing through those legs to help it repair quicker, okay? Yes, you do need to stretch those muscles, okay? Remember when you work out, your muscles tear up and then you feed it protein, your body then grabs all that protein and starts to repair those muscles again, okay? It's like your home, okay? And say the next day, okay, or the day after, your legs are super sore, and you know you're trying to stretch it. Okay, it is through the bloodstream, which all the cells in our body gets that protein, which is going to help repair that muscle. Okay, so the next day, do 5 minutes warming up your legs. Get the blood flowing through those legs, so you can supply more, get more oxygen, more carbs, more protein, more of the things that it needs for it to keep its adequate growth. All possession is based on consciousness. You must be aware of its existence. All gain is the result of an accumulative consciousness. All loss is the result of a scattering consciousness. Now remember how I was talking about when it comes to smoking weed. Okay, I used to work security, and one of the most amazing things that had happened to me, okay, it was late at night, and we were guarding what is it called, a quinceañera, and this guy, he dressed in this nice suit, older guy, and he was talking to me. And for a fact, this guy, I firmly believe he was a messenger, because that night I was just thinking like what can I do to be better? What can I do to better myself, to move closer towards my goals? And this guy, out of nowhere, he walks up to me, and he's talking about things that block you. He said, and he was just saying it just blocks you, keeping you from moving forward. And every time I think about that, I think about marijuana, because marijuana, yes, as great as it makes you feel, yes, as relaxing as it makes you feel, yes, all the benefits that it has, yes, it has the power to cure cancer and all this and that. But I'm 22 years old. I don't have any of those conditions. I don't need to be doing any of that stuff. And like I was saying before, when you do that, okay, you're scattering your thoughts, you're scattering your consciousness, you're blocking yourself. And that in turn, you start losing things. Because I know when like I said, all gain is a result in a cumulative consciousness. When I actually, test it out yourself, okay? Once you finally reach that point when you decide, you know what, I'm just going to start doing what I want to do, okay? I have all these goals, all these dreams that I see, these visions that I have. I'm going to start doing it, okay? And I'm going to stop doing everything that's keeping me from moving forward, okay? Once you get to that point where you actually do that for a while, you will truly see the difference that it makes within you, okay? Me personally, I went about 2.5 to 3 months, sober, okay, completely free. It was great. I was even talking with my neighbor about it just last night. When you don't do it, everybody knows you feel better when you don't do it. You're more clear of who you are as a person. You're more clear about the things you do. You have more consciousness and more power within your consciousness, because you're balanced within your mind. Okay, you're not scattered. Yeah. This is another way of saying that thoughts are things, and that things are thoughts. Apostrophe, thinks. Another apostrophe, materialize. When you think, you materialize. Thoughts are today being photographed, showing that they take form in the surrounding ether, or universal substances. These are scientific facts. And remember what Wallace D. Wattles had said, okay? We will then, that there is a mind surrounding us from every corner. And every thoughts we think, we are continuously surrounding us in return. Okay, we're continuously surrounded by our own thoughts. And in time, due to the eternal creative energies within man, all that will be manifested. He will then be surrounded by his own thoughts, made into material things. That's in the Science of Being Great. We had read that book as well. Go check it out. It's a great read. And, yeah, that's exactly what he is saying here too, and it's exactly what we were saying before. Okay, you're surrounded by your own thoughts, okay, and you're vibrating at that frequency. And according to the law of attraction, you are attracting everything else that is in accordance with your thinking. Have you ever thought of something and then it ended up happening? This is exactly the process of how that happens. You are a creator, my friend, not just a creature. Thought is a creative energy and will automatically correlate with its object and bring it into manifestation, because thought is spiritual energy or vibration. All this brings us back to the fact that prosperity is the result of right or creative thinking, and that poverty is the result of wrong or destructive thinking. You can prove this for yourself in a very short time. Begin by taking these words, quote, I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, prosperous, and happy, end quote. Repeat them over and over to yourself as often as you can think to do it, and especially the last thing before dropping off to sleep at night and the first thing upon awakening in the morning. Remember, these are creative words. Remember how we were just talking within the last chapter, because it was that science experiment with sound and the sand, and how the sound was put on the drum head, and then the sound that was playing through the drum, the sand then in turn moved itself in the design of that vibration of the sound. Okay, same thing with creative words. This is an affirmation. I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, prosperous, and happy. They are creative words. Remember the power of the word that we were talking about. Every thought or word opposed to them is destructive and must not be allowed to enter your mind or to be expressed in words. Sorry, I had somebody calling me really quick. It's a number I don't know. I don't answer too many numbers I don't know. Okay, moving on. Every thought or word opposed to them is destructive and must not be allowed to enter your mind or to be expressed in words. Every thought of disease, sickness, and pain is opposed to wholeness and perfection, and should be eliminated by declaring, quote, I am whole and prosperous and perfect, end quote. Every thought of weakness is opposed to strength and should be put out of the mind by saying, quote, I am strong and powerful, end quote. The affirmations. Because this I of who we are is the spirit of who we are. And when we say, I am strong, we are identifying ourselves as being strong. Believe in the words that you say about yourself. To know this law and live in harmony with it is to build prosperity on a rock foundation which nothing can destroy. By this law, things which are seen are made from things which do not appear. We are told by scientific students of nature that every element in the material world is in the ether. From these elements, the cabbage takes what is required to form a cabbage. From these same elements, the apple tree forms and colors an apple, and the rose from these elements produces, colors, and perfumes a rose. Surely, man should know as much as the cabbage, the apple, or the rose about handling these elements. Meaning, we should be aware, just as the rose is, just as the cabbage, and just as the apple, about the arrangements and creation of us from these elements. Remember, God is one. Everything that exists within God are all perfect expressions and manifestations of God. Okay, everything that God is everything that you are. There is only one. Students of nature also tell us that there is one universal substance, out of which all things are formed, and that the difference between flesh, vegetable, stone, iron, glass, etc., is the difference in the vibration or motion of these particles of substance, and as they are brought together and act and react upon each other. If you send thoughts of health, love, and prosperity, they will return to you multiplied, like the seed you sow in your garden. Send out destructive thoughts, they also return to you multiplied like weeds. You reap what you sow. For example, I know when I'm stoned out of my mind, sometimes I can't think positive thoughts, because I'm just thinking about, sometimes I'm just thinking about, why am I still doing this? Sometimes it's just like, what am I doing with my life? That's how it gets sometimes, especially when you're doing it too much, and you just, in mind, creating itself off of everything that you do, you start moving into that state of being, and that becomes, if you're doing it too much, then it's going to show in your character. Okay, it's going to show in your character. And you're definitely going to feel the difference between the person you were then and the person you're being now. Okay, and all that is due simply by the actions that we take. It's very important that we stay subtle so we could keep our thoughts concentrated on one specific thing. So we could stay concentrated on one specific thing. Law governs every form of light, heat, sound, and energy. Law governs every material thing and every immaterial thought. Law covers the earth with beauty and fills it with bounty. Shall you then not be certain that it also governs the distribution of this bounty? There are, however, many laws with which possibly you may not be familiar. For instance, when you grow weary of listening to a piece of jazz music being broadcasted from a New York hotel, you turn the dial an eighth of an inch, and you get a beautiful notes of a violin from Detroit, or Cleveland, or Chicago. Again you turn the dial an eighth of an inch, and you hear an organ solo from Omaha, or Denver. Another turn of the dial, and you hear a quartet singing in San Francisco or Los Angeles. And this is true whether you live in an apartment in New York, of a bungalow in the Hawaiian Islands, or in the keeper of a lighthouse in the shores of Alaska. Remember how we were reading exactly how when you turn these dials, the frequencies within the ether, within the atmosphere, are being connected with your antenna, okay? Because there's a broadcast radio station, okay? Let's say Air 1. Okay, I know I used Air 1 in my recent example for it because Air 1 is my favorite radio station, okay? So the station Air 1, okay, they're broadcasting their music on a certain frequency, on a certain vibration, okay? When you tune in to 92.7, your own personal antenna then tunes into that vibration. Then you're receiving the songs and the music and then the sounds, okay? Then those sounds are then being reproduced through your speakers. Then you're then hearing the sounds with your own personal consciousness, okay? Same thing with everything else, okay? Same thing with thoughts, okay? We have the ability to connect with the thoughts within the ether, okay? Moving your thoughts, moving your consciousness to a higher plane of thinking, okay? And once we move into a higher plane of thinking, by the law of attraction, we start bringing in more thoughts and ideas and pictures and images within our own mind of higher states of thinking and being, because it's all in the ether. The simple turn of a dial would take you clear across the continent, and you may stop as often as you wish on the way, and all because the various broadcasting stations use a different wavelength. It may take you clear across the continent. You could be listening to somebody in China from your room by changing the dial, then all of a sudden listening to somebody in Germany while sitting in your same room. That's amazing. The wavelength depends upon the frequency or the number of vibrations which pass a given point in 1 second. Okay? So, let's say for example, we have our line A. Okay? The wavelength, he says, is determined by how many times it passes the point at a given second. Okay, so let's say it takes 1 second to get from this wave to this wave. Okay, that will be, in turn, use different wavelengths, pass through a given point in 1 second. That will be the wavelength, okay, depending upon the frequency or the number of vibrations which passes a given point in 1 second. How amazing. It is possible for one of the more powerful broadcasting stations to send a message which will simultaneously reach every person in the United States, but the message will be received by those only who have a receiver which is in tune with the station which is sending the message. The 7 planets comprising the solar system are all creating vibrations in the ether. These vibrations are all of such high frequency that there is at this time no means of measuring them. These vibrations change the character of the thought, the emotions, the impulses, and thus influence the lives of every vital organism. And why should this not be true? The message from an ordinary broadcasting station is delivered with high energy equal to something like 5,000 HP, while a planet like Jupiter with a diameter of 85,000 miles develops an almost inconceivable amount of energy as it plows its way through the ether with the speed of a cannonball. It is nature's method in comparison with the methods of man, but you are inclined to magnify the results of man's endeavor to minimize or deny the influence of the greatest amount of physical force in existence. So these vibratory influences that are affecting us by all the planets, okay, remember we've already gone over all of the horoscopes within this, and I've even written down a few of the horoscopes that I told you that I was going to read to you in comparison to our lovely book, because we learned that, okay, there are 12 signs of the zodiac. Okay, there's there's Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. I missed two. I said Sagittarius. I said Taurus. I said Cancer. I said Gemini. Oh man, I said Aries. Aries the first. There are 12, okay, and each one of these 12s are then in turn categorized in 3 different characteristic signs. Okay, for example, there are the cardinal signs, the mutable signs, and then the fixed signs. Okay. Man, I can't remember at the top of my head right now which each one of them was, but of the 3, there 4 of them. 4 of the signs were distributed between each of the 3 of these character signs. Okay, the fixed sign, which is what I'm a part of. Okay, Aquarius. Okay, Aquarians are fixed in what they do. This being said, Aquarians they could be persistent, but they take a while to change their directions, okay, because they're fixed in the things that they do, but they won't stop. They won't stop whatever it is that they're doing. Okay, then there's the mutable signs. Okay, one of the mutable signs is Gemini. Okay, Aquarius and Gemini are both air signs. Okay, one of the mutable signs is Gemini. Mutable signs are supposed to be in between the cardinal signs and the fixed signs. Okay, mutable signs are very good at getting things started, but they're not really that good at staying focused on it. Okay, like they'll jump from one thing to the next, jumping from another thing to the next. Okay, and then there's the cardinal signs, which are the initiators. Okay, they're the ones that, okay, the cardinal signs get things started, but they almost never finish. They almost never finish. And then there's the fire, air, earth, and water. Okay, 3 of the signs have been distributed between these 4 different elements. Okay, Aquarius being part of the air sign. And yeah, like I said, I have the paper that I had written some down, and we're going to go ahead and go over that with you guys too, with the 7 planets, because also the 7 planets correspond with the 7 major nerve ganglia within the sympathetic nervous system. Remember, the subconscious mind being the median between the universal consciousness, which is nature's mind, and man's personal conscious being, which is his own his own thought world, his own world of thoughts, moods, and feelings, and dang, what? Yeah, this being true. Okay, the 7 major nerve ganglia. Okay, we're on the very last page, so let's continue. It is nature's method of comparison with the methods of man, but you are inclined to magnify the results of man's endeavor, to minimize or deny the influence of the greatest amount of physical force in existence. When you repeat, quote, "I am prosperous, harmonious, and happy," end quote, you are tuning in on Jupiter, the most powerful station in existence. You are raising your vibration. You are increasing the frequency. You are shortening the wave length. Jupiter is the station of good fortune, the station of power, the station of plenty. Get him located on your mental dial. Think prosperous, think harmonious, and think happy. Now he is ending this chapter with a quote by Peter Bell. Or, no. I think it is entitled Peter Bell, and it is quoted by Wordsworth. Okay, so Peter Bell, he moved among the vales and streams, in the green wood and hollow dell. They were his dwelling night and day, but nature near could find the way into the heart of Peter Bell. In vain through every changing year did nature lead him as before. A primrose by the river's brim, a yellow primrose was to him, and it was nothing more. And that is by Wordsworth. And that is the end of section 15 on the imagination by Charles F. Haanel. If you made it to the end of this video with me, thank you so much for watching. Remember our daily affirmations that we are the lights of the world, you and me, and together we can make a difference. And remember what we just learned about our imagination, okay? I want to talk a little bit more about our third eye chakra, okay? Ajna, okay? Your third eye chakra, your mind's eye, okay? Your pineal gland, okay? It's located in your eyebrow area, right between your eyes, okay? Your pineal gland is known to be the only other organ in the bottom in the body that has rods and cones, okay? The only other organ is the eyeballs, okay? Your eyes are the only organs in the body that have rods and cones, okay? And they're responsible for seeing things, you know, like we were saying earlier, okay? We wouldn't know of the existence of light if there weren't light or color, if we didn't have rods and cones or an eyeball to see them, okay? Remember, everything we see is simply the manifestation of the energy, because we can close our eyes, we could be blind, we cannot have eyes at all. That energy will still be there, but just the fact that we have the eyeball, we're able to see it as an expression of something. Remember, it's nothing but spiritual energy, and the nature of the vibration of what it's vibrating at determines the color of what you're going to see. Okay. So your mind's eye, ajna. Okay, ajna, your pineal gland, is the only other organ in the body that's known to have rods and cones. But the thing is with ajna, okay, the rods and cones aren't found externally, okay? These rods and cones are found inside of the pineal gland, okay? Not outside of the gland, inside of the gland, which is very, very interesting, because in our wall right here, we have that, hold on, let me turn the light on, it's getting a little bit dark in here. So on our wall, we have the third eye chakra, ajna, which is responsible for intuition and imagination, imaging things. It is through your third eye. It is through your pineal gland. It is through your mind's eye. It is through ajna, which you image things, which you can see things as they are before they actually are. And this, seeing things as they are, is what's going to allow you to bring it out of the invisible into the actual visible and tangible. So with all that being said, you guys, meditate. Sit down and meditate upon your own imagination. Remember, the man who is aware of what he is imagining knows what he is creating. In that quote by Buddha, okay? The imagination creates. There's one thing I also want to end it with. I read this quote in another video. This one's also by Neville Goddard. And he says, and I quote, "Nothing appears or continues in being by a power of its own. Events happen because comparatively unstable, imaginal activities created them, and they continue in being only as long as they receive such support." Now that is by Neville Goddard. Okay. Thank you so much for watching this video, creator, and I will see you on the other side of the galaxy.